Strong literacy skills are the foundation of student success, both in school and beyond. Nelson Literacy is a comprehensive learning resource based on current educational research and the requirements of your provincial curriculum. The instructional framework of Nelson Literacy addresses all strands of your language curriculum: oral language, reading, writing, and media. Nelson Literacy develops literacy skills using both literature-based units and content-based units from your science, social studies, and health curricula. Nelson Literacy zeroes in on the critical strategies necessary for students to become successful learners. Each unit focuses on the explicit teaching of one key strategy for each strand. In this video, you will see a Grade 4 teacher using the Healthy Living unit of Nelson Literacy 4. The instructional focus is on the reading strategy of determining important ideas. Teacher Sherry Sellers will follow the gradual release of responsibility model using the components of Nelson Literacy. Sherry introduces the unit using the Let's Talk activity in the student instruction book.
What you're going to do in your group, you're going to try to find as many signs of healthy living in this bedroom as you can. And for each sign of healthy living that you find, you're going to write it down on a sticky note. Okay? So that's the first task.
Thingies? What? Soft or what? Those soft thingies you put on your knees.
I wrote running
Hockey trophies. I wrote trophies. Trophy. Do you have running trophy?
Talk is the foundation for literacy. It is used to activate the student's prior knowledge about the topic of healthy living and lays the groundwork for developing the strategy of finding important ideas. Sherry observes and gathers information about the student's oral language development and background knowledge.
I've got the right gear, right? I've got the right gear there. Good. That's fine.
After students have identified signs of healthy living, Sherry asks them to categorize their Post-it notes. This helps develop the concept of determining important ideas.
Helmet, be active, soccer ball, hat, bed, don't smoke.
Now that the students have been introduced to the topic of healthy living and the strategy of determining important ideas, Sherry uses the Read Aloud lesson found in the transparency binder. Only she has a copy of this text.
Okay, grade 4s, before we get started, I want to discuss some of the things, some of the strategies that good readers use when they're reading. Jenny?
They visualize it.
Okay, they make pictures in their head, right? That's one strategy. Chloe?
You connect to the book something that's happened to you.
What other reading strategies do we use?
Questioning the text.
So we ask questions as we're reading the text. Okay, today I'm going to introduce to you another important strategy. Okay, and this strategy is called determining important ideas.
Sherry identifies a strategy that good readers use: finding important ideas. She reads the text aloud, pauses, and models the strategy using Think Aloud. She uses a visual cue, the Think Aloud bubble, to indicate to the students that she's no longer reading, but articulating her thinking.
Former teacher Robert McGowan started the Health Report Project at his school board 4 years ago to help overweight kids who have a greater chance of developing health problems. So again, I'm going to stop and I'm going to think. This is what's going on in my head right now. I think that this is probably an important point because the author is telling us the reason why this teacher has decided to implement health report cards. And that reason is that students are not as healthy as they used to be, and so he's deciding that he's going to come up with these health report cards to try and make people healthier. Okay, so as I'm reading through the text, I'm thinking about what might be the important ideas, and so far I'm thinking, should students be graded on their health? I'm thinking about, if there were a health report card, what would be on it? Okay, and the third thing is, why would we need to have health report cards? And those are 3 things that the author so far has told us.
The Read Aloud is the first step in the gradual release of responsibility model, providing maximum teacher support. After the read aloud, students discuss and share their views on health report cards.
School, I think they should stick with regular report cards at school, and then they could start that at the doctor's, so it's private for just the parents and the child and the doctor, not the school, the teacher.
If you are eating bad food and you don't know that because you don't have a health report card, sometime it'll be too late to turn back.
After modeling the strategy using a read aloud, Sherry engages the students in shared reading. She uses the shared reading transparency from the Nelson Literacy Transparency Binder. She begins by reading the entire text aloud to the class to ensure that the text is accessible to all students.
And they're packed with vitamins and fiber.
She reads the text again, pausing to model the strategy of determining important ideas.
Raise your hand if you think you can tell me one way that this article is organized.
It's organized by the numbers of the subtitles.
Okay. Good. So you have numbers. Each subtitle has a number, right? You'll also notice that each of those headings is in bold type so that it stands out for us. Okay? You'll also notice that we've got chunks of information. Okay? So it's separated. This is one piece of information, this is a second piece, and this is a third piece. So as you're reading this piece of text, if I wanted you very quickly to be able to tell me what the main ideas of this piece of text were, how would you go about doing that?
Look at the headings and look at all three headings and name the three headings.
And that would tell us?
The three main ideas.
The main idea. Very good.
Sherry then invites the class to read along with her, stopping at various intervals to discuss the strategy. At this stage, she is giving the students more responsibility for employing the strategy while continuing to provide a fair amount of support.
So, what would I underline here as the most important piece of information? Jasleen?
Grades give you energy for the rest of the day.
I think that's a really good point, Jasleen. Okay, so what you're going to
The
do
next lesson enables students to practice the reading strategy using a selection from their student instruction book. Sherry will use the guided practice approach outlined in her teacher's resource. Before reading, Sherry sets the context and has students activate their prior knowledge. They work in groups to brainstorm what they already know about physical fitness.
Okay, grade 4s, if you can put your pencils down and have a look up at the board. So have a look at your list and give me some of the ideas that you have for what it means to be fit.
To set the stage for using the strategy of finding important ideas, Sherry compiles a class list of the ideas her students have generated about physical fitness.
Same way, fitness or exercise.
Together, they categorize the information and come up with a label for each category.
So if I said to you, one of the most important ideas is either fitness or exercise, these are the details. You can play baseball, you can play football, you can play hockey, you can go rollerblading, you can play tennis. Those are all details that relate to fitness or exercise. Pick up your literacy book and open up to page 102.
The students will now practice the strategy using the scaffolded selection in their student instruction book. The text begins with a review of how to use the strategy.
Finding important ideas. You can't remember everything you read, but you can learn how to decide what's important and what's just interesting. You'll find it easier to remember what's important if you don't try to remember every detail.
The sticky notes and highlighting in the text provide students with support as they use the strategy. Each sticky note is composed of two parts. The first statement is a generic prompt that can be transferred to any text. The second part is a question that asks students to apply the strategy to the text they are reading. The question is answered in the highlighted part of the text.
Let's look at the first sticky note on this page. Keep your purpose in mind. What is one thing you need to remember if you want to be a fit kid? So let's read this paragraph, and you're thinking about the one thing you need to remember in order to be a fit kid.
Sherry follows the lesson notes in her teacher's resource to guide her students through the reading.
What does this paragraph tell us that we need to do if we want to be fit? What's the main idea of this entire paragraph? What do we need to do in order to be fit? Natalie?
Shoot for 4 or 5 servings of vegetables a day.
That's right. We need to eat 4 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Okay, let's turn the page. Let's look at number 3, limit screen time. Again, you're going to be looking for the important ideas. That's what the sticky note is telling you to do. And why does the writer tell you to limit screen times? Who can tell me the most important idea in this paragraph? Matt?
Limit screen time.
Okay, and why is this important? If you look in the paragraph there, what do they say is the important part here?
That these activities don't make you active, like they use more time than there would be for like basketball and bike riding.
Very good.
After reading the text, Sherry uses the reflection questions in her teacher's resource to help students think about how the reading strategy helped them to better understand the text.
How did the organization of this text help you find the important ideas? Jenny?
Since the subtitles usually were the main idea, they were all organized, so they're at the very top, so you didn't have to look very far.
So, okay, so the subtitles were at the very top. And how were the subtitles, how were those sections separated?
With numbers, and they're separated into paragraphs.
That's right. So you have a number, a subtitle, and then the paragraph underneath tells you about that idea, right? Very good.
Sherry has been assessing her students' understanding of the reading strategy through observation. Now she will use the key assessment questions in her teacher's resource to add to her assessment data. While the class writes their responses to the questions, she conducts oral assessment conferences with selected students.
Okay, Jared, so as we've been reading Be a Fit Kid, what's the purpose for our reading when we did this text? What was our purpose?
To find out how to be a fit kid.
How did setting that purpose for reading help you to read the text? How did that help you?
By setting a purpose, you knew what you were looking for and you didn't read all the interesting details really. You just looked for what you wanted to know.
Okay, so does that mean that you skipped past all the details, or did you still read them?
You read.
You read them. But what did you do with that information when you read it? If you knew it wasn't an important idea?
You didn't really try to remember it.
Okay. How was the text organized?
But it was numbered.
Okay.
By the subtitles. And there are pictures.
What about these paragraphs?
Some were highlighted.
Okay, so what did the paragraphs tell us? What information was in the paragraph?
About the subtitles.
About the subtitles. So this is our main idea, and this is giving you all of the detail, right? Okay, so how did knowing how the text was organized help you to find the most important ideas?
And just look at the subtitles.
Looking through this text, what were the main ideas that you found as you read?
Eat a variety of foods, especially fruits and vegetables. Drink water and milk most often. Limit screen time, be active, and get enough sleep.
What were some of the details that you didn't really have to focus on?
Like the details are about 1,300 milligrams each day if you're 9 or older.
Okay, what else did you think was a detail?
And, taste new foods and old ones you haven't tried for a while.
Sherry uses the assessment rubric provided in her teacher's resource to determine how well each student has understood and used the reading strategy of finding important ideas. Using the data Sherry has collected through observation and from the students' responses to the key assessment questions, she decides the next instructional steps. In the gradual release of responsibility model, students now need an opportunity to apply the strategy. Sherry has them do this by reading the next selection in the student instruction book. This selection has neither sticky notes nor highlighting. Some students may be ready to apply the strategy independently. Others may need continued teacher support in the form of a guided reading group. While Sherry works with her guided reading groups, the rest of the class works on other literacy activities suggested in the teacher's resource, developing healthy menus, creating healthy living collages, or independent reading.
Let's talk first about the reading strategies that good readers use when they're reading. What are some things that good readers do automatically in their head when they're reading? Austin.
Make connections.
We make connections. Good. Thomas.
Visualize.
Yep.
Determine important ideas.
Excellent.
Question the text.
Good. Vidi?
They predict.
Okay, so what's the strategy we've been focusing on in our Healthy Living unit? The reading strategy that we've been really focusing on. Kira?
Determining important ideas.
Right. Okay, so what does that mean, determining important ideas? Thomas?
It means to separate all the main idea, or important ideas in this case, from the details. They're just fun to read.
Okay, good. So what's the one thing in that whole paragraph that you think is the main idea? Keeping in mind what the heading of this paragraph is. What should I eat? Kira?
Things for everyday foods that are healthy for you, and sometimes foods that are not so good for you.
Okay, so you should eat everyday foods and sometimes foods?
You should eat more of everyday foods than sometimes.
And you should try and eat a variety of foods, right? Thomas, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I'm not sure, I can't really tell if there's a main idea there. It's talk about eating many different kinds of foods is the best way to fuel up at meals and snack times.
Okay, that's a good point. What do you think? Eating many different kinds of foods. Do you think that's a detail? Or do you think that's maybe the main idea of the paragraph? Eating many different kinds of foods. And if you're not sure, go back and look at the heading of this section. It's a question. So look at the question and think, does that first sentence answer the question? Matt?
Yes.
It answers the question. So the question is, what should I eat? And the first sentence says, eating many different kinds of foods is the best way to fuel up. So if that is answering the question, do you think it is a detail or a main idea, Thomas?
Probably a main idea.
I think you're probably right. And the rest of the information in there is more of a detail, right?
Yeah, I couldn't really tell.
Some students may need to apply the strategy using an alternative text at a different level of difficulty. A variety of these are provided in the Nelson Literacy Guided and Independent Reading Kit. Sherry uses an easier text with this guided reading group.
I have a chart up here listing food, activity, and rest. I want you to give me some tips that we can do to keep ourselves healthy.
Sleeping.
So we could make sure we're getting enough sleep.
Do sports.
Okay, so you can do a variety of sports.
Eat fruits and vegetables.
Okay, very good. So we've got quite a little list here of things that we can do for healthy living. I want you to have a look at the text that I've given you. I want you to just take a look through the whole thing and look at how the text is organized. Okay, so I want you to look through the entire text. We're going to talk about how it's organized. What do you notice about how the text is organized?
They have numbers.
Okay, there are numbers. What else?
Pictures.
Pictures, yeah.
There's subtitles.
Very good. There are subtitles. What else do you notice on every page with those subtitles and those numbers?
They're all like in separate paragraphs.
Very good. They're all in separate paragraphs. Okay. Why do you think, Jasleen said everything is in a separate paragraph. Why do you think they're all in separate paragraphs?
It says 10 tips of healthy living.
Okay, so what do you think those paragraphs are all about?
Each one is one different tip about healthy living.
Very good. When you're looking for the main idea in a paragraph, where is the main idea often located? There's usually one or two spots that we can usually find that main idea. Sajil?
At the beginning.
Either the very first sentence at the beginning, or where else might it be?
At the end.
At the very end. So if you're having trouble finding that main idea, you may want to take a look back at that first or the last sentence and see if that helps you. Okay, so what do you think the main idea of Get Moving is then? Jasleen?
It's easy to fit physical activities into your daily routine.
That's right. It's easy to do it. It's easy to get moving. You can fit these activities into your daily routine. Turn to the next page. I want you to look at the 3 headings for the 3 tips on this page, numbers 3, 4, and 5. Read them to yourself. Let's look at Snack Smart. If I were to ask you to put that tip into one of these 3 categories, which category would you put it into, Matt? Into food. Good. What about tip number 4, work up a sweat? Natalie?
And activity.
Good. And what about balance your food choices? Don't eat too much of one thing.
Food.
In food again. Very good. Okay. Again, I want you to read through tip number 3 and underline the main idea as you read. Okay, now let's think back to a strategy we talked about a little while ago when we're looking for the main idea. Sometimes when you're looking for the main idea, you might want to look at that heading and turn it into a why question. Do you remember doing that when we turned those headings into why questions? Can you turn tip number 3 into a why question for me, Jasleen?
Why should snacks be smart?
I don't think snacks can be smart. Let's think of ourselves being smart. Yes.
Why should we be snack smart?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking of. Why should we be snack smart? So if I want to find the main idea, and the question is, why should we be snack smart? My main idea should answer that question, right? So in that paragraph, what answers that question for me? Why should we be snack smart?
Snacks are a great way to fuel up.
That's right. Why should we be snack smart? Because snacks are a great way to fuel up. Let's look at tip number 7 for a minute. Eat more grains, fruits, and vegetables. What's the why question here? Natalie?
Why should I eat more grains, fruits, and vegetables?
Good. Why should I eat more grains, fruits, and vegetables? And what's the answer to the why question? So Jill?
These foods give you carbohydrates for energy, plus vitamins and minerals and fiber.
Very good. So the question is, why should I eat these products? Because they'll give me the carbs, the vitamins, and the minerals that I need, right? Okay, very good.
The gradual release of responsibility model involves the explicit teaching of literacy strategies through a slow and careful removal of scaffolding. Beginning with read aloud, the teacher models and explains a strategy. The teacher thinks aloud to demonstrate how to apply the strategy successfully. After explicitly modeling the strategy, the teacher gradually gives more responsibility to the students. During shared reading, the teacher and students practice the strategy together. The teacher then gives students an opportunity to practice the strategy using text with prompts and highlighting to scaffold their efforts. Students share their thinking processes with one another. The teacher scaffolds student attempts to apply the strategy in small guided reading groups and during individual conferencing. The teacher gives feedback and supports student thinking. After working with the teacher and their classmates, students try to apply the strategy on their own. Nelson Literacy provides comprehensive resources to support teachers and students at every stage in the gradual release of responsibility model. Though the focus of this video has been on reading, Nelson Literacy provides the same support for oral language, writing, and media. Nelson Literacy helps you focus on the strategies your students need for success.